Audeze headphones, are they worth an investment? I'll tell you, but first swipe your credit card information here, put your date of birth here, and just kidding. Stick around and we'll talk about it. Greetings, mate, and welcome aboard. Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions leading to a beautiful audio experience that will make you fall in love with music, not gear, all over again. So, are Audeze headphones worth it? The answer is that it depends. Do stick around to the end of this video as we'll go over reasons why you should or shouldn't purchase a pair, as well as delve into specific models and their nuances. We'll also touch on something that may be neither good nor bad, so stay put for that as well. First, the bad. I don't think Audeze headphones are worth it if, number one, you have neck issues and or have trouble wearing heavy headphones for an extended period of time. As much as I love the sound, I don't think I could ever own one, as they get incredibly uncomfortable after a certain period of time. The clamp is great. The depth and size of the cups is great. The build is fantastic. It's the weight of the headphone that presents problems. It feels like you're literally wearing a bowling ball on your melon. If you happen to have some disc issues like myself, it's a definite no-go. The frustrating part about it is I really want to own a pair, and specifically the LCD2 is probably my favorite out of the entire line. But when I was demoing one, I really couldn't keep it on my head for more than 30 minutes without feeling like someone was sitting on my face. Number two, you desire a brighter treble. Let's face it, Audeze headphones can be very polarizing. You're probably either going to love the sound or hate it. The treble on all Audeze headphones leans towards dark, with the LCD4 being probably the darkest out of the bunch that I personally tried. To be honest, I think they went a little bit too far with it. In comparing one side by side with the Utopia out of a name DAC V1, I prefer the Utopia and it really wasn't even close. The LCD4 sounded veiled in comparison, but also took a lot of juice to get pumping. More on that in a jiffy. I've demoed quite a few Audeze headphones, including the LCD1, LCD2, LCD3, LCD4, LCDX, LCDXC, EL8 open, EL8 closed, and the Sign. By and large, you'll notice the treble on all models leans towards dark, but some not as much as the others. My most memorable experience was certainly an LCD3 paired with a Bryson BHA1, playing back a FLAC version of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I can't remember what DAC was paired with it, as it was a few years ago. This is an experience I've talked quite a bit about on the blog and channel, and one that I will never forget. I will link it down below and above if you're interested. A few of my patrons recommended this article as it's really good reading. So click the link now! Or later. Number 3, amplification. Speaking of pairings, the third reason why you may not want to invest in an Audeze headphone is if you don't also plan to invest in some rather beefy amplification, for the LCD line specifically. This is one product that absolutely does need some juice to get going, even despite varying impedance and sensitivity ratings. Most of my regular readers and subscribers know I don't place a lot of emphasis on the amp and DAC, but in the case of the Audeze, I would certainly plan to do so. This is one instance where I firmly believe that the right amp is crucial to the listening experience. Some are very sensitive to power, meaning they don't need much in theory, and some aren't, but you'll find that they all would rather have the proper setup with plenty of headroom. If you're new, I'm simply referring to efficiency. How efficient is the headphone at using the power it receives from the amp? Generally speaking, a higher number indicates good efficiency, i.e. it doesn't need as much power, whereas a lower number means poor efficiency, and it does need a lot of power. On spec sheets, this number will be its sensitivity rating, but explaining it in terms of efficiency is much easier for people to understand. I'll flash up a graphic of the LCD line and their specific numbers. I'll also link my impedance and sensitivity articles down below. Because most of them terminate in a 1/4 inch jack already, it's obvious Audeze wants you to pair them with something of equal measure. I've personally tested Audeze headphones on the name DAC V1, Bryson BHA1, iFi IDSD Black Label, and the Cord Hugo amongst others. The point is that you'll want to invest in an amp with plenty of power and, in my opinion, something a bit more neutral. Because synergy and scaling. Per my experience, these numbers can also be a bit deceiving. For example, even the gargantuan monolith name DAC V1 took a bit of volume knob turning to get the 97 decibel per milliwatt LCD4 going. 97 isn't exactly low, but for comparison's sake, an HD600 is much easier to drive at the same rating, even despite the 600 having a higher impedance as well. Also be careful to turn the volume back down after you're done, or you'll be in for a world of pain like Smokey from Big Lebowski.
Smokey, my friend. You're entering a world of pain.
Now that the bad is out of the way, what about a few reasons to purchase one? Number 1. Timbre. This is perhaps the best reason along with the overall sound. Audeze headphones tend to sound incredibly lush and natural. Like butter, everything is smooth, velvety, and effortless. This is in large part due to their planar magnetic profile. Link below if you're interested in what makes a planar magnetic better than a dynamic. You really get a sense that you're hearing that track in the way that the artist intended. The way an instrument may sound in real life versus the way it sounds through a device. It kind of feels like you're in an actual space, hearing the sound envelop you rather than it being fed into your ears. Soundstage and imaging on Audeze headphones is also tremendous. There is a lifelike quality to an Audeze that really can't be disputed. You'll know it when you hear it. If there was ever a headphone that deserved the overused musical moniker, an Audeze is most certainly it. Number 2, the bass. I've talked quite a bit in articles and videos about how the Audeze house bass is my most preferred, and you'll likely fall in love as well. Just add some butter, salt and pepper, and some spices, with a side of mashed potatoes and maybe some asparagus. Now envision you're at the beach with your boo, sitting on the dock of the bay like Otis Redding. Now click the link in the description box and buy the headphones now. Nah, seriously. Do it! Haha, for real. The bass is perfect. You'll get miles and miles of sub-bass extension and plenty of impact without ever feeling like the bass is drowning out the mid-range. Another quality of Audeze headphones that I love. This is as articulate and correct as bass gets. It hits hard but never sounds artificial. Another quality of planars, and Audezes in particular, that stand out. Oftentimes bass can thump but sound dry or needly. The bass on an Audeze has a lush, wet character without sounding sloppy or sloshy. You like that word salad? The kick drum and bass line both sound incredibly natural. Again, as if you're hearing someone physically press the kick pedal in real life versus just hearing the thump of it through the headphone drivers. This is due to both the attack and decay of the kick, something that again Audeze headphones tend to excel at with regard to the overall sound as well. This is bass for bass head snobs who understand what good bass is supposed to sound like. Unlike those silly ass Beats by Dre snobs who smirk at you thinking they found the holy grail of headphones. Well, this just in, Buster! You haven't! The only slight issue is that the mids can sometimes sound a tad too recessed or relaxed. This is a minor issue that pops up in most of the LCD line, but it's still a great presentation overall. This isn't your mid-forward K702 or anything like that. Not that that's a bad thing, just different. There's a bump at 1K, but after that, Audeze headphones generally take a gradual dip into the upper mids and then the treble. This is similar to a Sundara and somewhat of a problem at times. Even so, it's done really well for the most part. Number 3, driver matching. This is an aspect of higher end headphones that tends to make them stand out over their lower tiered price bracket counterparts, or even mid-fi. When you buy an Audeze, you're almost guaranteed to get a product that sounds just about perfect from both sides. This is of paramount importance to the listening experience for obvious reasons. With cheaper stuff, you can almost immediately tell there's a mismatch at lower volumes, and it sometimes can put a damper on the listening session, however small that inconsistency might be. So what about a couple of things that I'm on the fence about? Good or bad, you decide. Detail retrieval. Another great quality of high-end headphones is the micro detail you'll experience. It can be overwhelming at times just how much nuance becomes present. Something that again, I discussed in great detail with the LCD3. Imagine putting a microscope up to a fire ant. That's the kind of detail I'm talking about. Everything seems to become incredibly magnified and crystal clear. As in the case of the LCD3, you may find that this might not be a positive or negative thing. The sense of raw emotion and clarity that the headphone provided made me feel really uncomfortable. As if I was experiencing some form of cognitive dissonance and couldn't quite make up my mind whether or not to believe this is how the track actually sounded versus the way I had grown up accustomed to hearing it. Still, in most cases, detail in Audeze headphones is a wonderful experience and really adds to the immersion. Number 2, price. This may or may not be an object standing in the way. If you're watching this on YouTube or reading it on the blog, you've likely already set aside some money to spend on an Audeze headphone. Or you just have the money already. The question then becomes, is that investment worth it over the long haul? And this brings us back full circle. I believe it can be if you understand the potential drawbacks of owning one. I also believe that purchasing something like an LCD2 Classic could be a perfect compromise, as it's both under $1,000 and lighter at 544 grams. That may sound pretty heavy, but a lot of the other models in the LCD line are significantly heavier. If I were to spend money on one, I'd certainly buy an LCD Classic without much hesitation. At around $800, it's a great bargain considering all the positives that we discussed today. Number 1, the timbre is excellent and the planar sound does stand out over its dynamic counterparts. This is a warm, musical headphone that will appeal to many people. Number 2, the build is mostly fantastic and I've never had any issues with any Audeze product that I've demoed dating back to 2017. Number 3, the bass strikes a perfect balance of being neither too rolled off nor too boosted. This is my preferred type of bass response and just may become yours as well. There is plenty of sub-bass extension, but the mid-bass doesn't get bloated and in the way of the mid-range. This is a perfect scenario as Audeze headphones tend to work well for a multitude of genres and portray any type of music that I can think of with absolute ease. The LCD2 Classic to me represents a true upgrade from mid-fi at a sensible price. If you're interested, click here to my right and learn more. I'll also leave links down below for all relevant topics discussed today and links for where to buy.